Robson, Shaka Hislop, and we also welcome from his hotel balcony in Moscow, Gab Marcotti is with us as well. More from Gab a little later on in the show, but we will kick things off with today's friendly between Belgium and Costa Rica. Impressive stuff from Roberto Martinez's side. Costa Rica took the lead, but from then on, Belgium dominated. And for many, they feel that maybe, just maybe, Robbo, this could be the time that the golden generation can really shine.
Today they played some fantastic, as you'd expect them to do with the players they've got. Dries Mertens down one side, Hazard, every time he got on the ball, he was running past people. Lukaku with his power and pace, but it's still held together by Kevin De Bruyne. He was magnificent. Some of his little one-twos, he's passing round the corner, he's passing over the top. He's the player that really makes them tick.
You take a look at the starting 11 that they put out, Shaq, and it is one of those cases in which it's obvious that they should be in contention when it comes to the business end of this World Cup. But there is still a little bit of doubt around why.
There's still a lot of doubt around them, certainly in my mind, and it's all down to Lukaku up front. As impressive as he's been for club, I don't think he's been able to replicate that form for country. It's a different...
Looked good today, though, didn't he? 2 goals?
He did, but it's a different game. Against a poor Costa Rica team, maybe we have to say, given what we've seen from them over the last couple of weeks. But at the World Cup, it's a different game. It's slower. You have to be cleaner with your finishing, and I'm not sure that Lukaku is that guy. We are talking about the same Romelu Lukaku who lost his starting spot to Origi 4 years ago. That he's improved, I just don't think enough to suggest that Belgium are going to go on and win this or get to a final.
I wouldn't say that's their weakness. Their weakness could be the wing-backs. Carrasco, who's really a left winger, playing at left wing-back, he looks like he's going to start. Meunier down the other side, he's a decent player, but he's not a top-class player. And Alderweireld, you know, I think is a wonderful player, but over the last year, he hasn't played that much football. He hasn't been in Tottenham's side. I think he's lost that little bit of confidence. And Boyata as the middle centre-half in a back three, they would be the weaknesses for me.
Let's bring Gab into the conversation, shall we? Gab, is this kind of last chance saloon for this generation?
I think as far as the World Cup is concerned, perhaps. I mean, a lot of these guys are going to be around for the Euros. I think it's perhaps last chance saloon for playing a certain type of Belgian football that we saw under Wilmots, and hopefully it's going to be version 2.0, the improved version under Roberto Martinez. But, you know, I was listening to what you guys were saying about Lukaku, and I think the challenge is going to be, and we'll find out while he's done it, Lukaku gets a very different type of service at Manchester United than he does with Belgium. So I think that could be something problematic. But remember, they always have the plan B. Dries Mertens played at center forward all season long for Napoli. Might that be something that Roberto turns to if Lukaku isn't firing?
What's success, Robbo, for Belgium, this tournament? How far do they go and you think, yeah, they fulfilled their potential?
I think they have to get to the semi-finals. With the squad that you've just seen, with the amount of players that they've got that I would think are verging on world-class players, and we're talking about Hazard, we're talking about De Bruyne, and I still don't think Lukaku's a problem for them. They've got Batshuayi to come on if need be. I think they have to get to the semi-finals to be successful. And I think it's a big job for Roberto Martinez. He's got some big players to cope with.
Is he up for that job?
I think he's a good coach. Does he understand the defensive side of the game? That's why I highlighted the problem in the wing-back area. Everton, they played good football at Everton. They scored goals at Everton, but defensively, they weren't good enough. At Wigan, his team wasn't good enough defensively. Yes, they played great counter-attacking football. They played some good passing football, but he's always had a problem with the defensive side of the game, and that could be their problem in this tournament.
What would define a successful campaign, Shaq?
I agree with Stu here. It's got to be a semi-final. I think a lot comes down to who finishes 1 and 2 in their group, of course, group with England. You then pay up against Colombia or Senegal out of Group G, and that determines exactly who you come up against in the quarters and then the semis. But yes, given the talent in this squad, if you don't make these semi-finals, it's seen as a poor tournament for them.
Let's just remind you of Belgium's group. Of course, they're drawn with England, who are the other favourites to advance, along with Tunisia and Panama. Gab, the bookies have got Belgium as the strong favourites to get out of this group first. Is that fair? Are they a much better side overall than England?
I think they're a more talented side, no question about it. I'm not surprised the bookies feel that way. A lot of it also, you know, has to do with sort of the development of the group, the order in which you play. The thinking is Belgium have a much softer start against Panama, and then they can build momentum from there. And possibly also the fact that, you know, in the third game, if Belgium need to win against England, to finish ahead of them, that they can do that. You know, right now there's no doubting Belgium's talent, and whereas England are probably behind, certainly in terms of the arc of progress that they're trying to get to.
Let's switch our conversation to England, because some interesting quotes attributed to your former teammate, Tony Adams, talking about their potential going into this tournament, because the former Arsenal captain came out and has been sceptical about the heart of some of the players. And particularly put on the Spurs players, saying, I'm really worried about these Tottenham players. I don't think they know how to win. They're very good players, but at certain points in season and tournaments, you have to step up. There's a psyche that players must have. Take a look at the Spurs players that are in the squad. They will, of course, be prominent in this tournament. Harry Kane, Dele Alli, Eric Dyer, certainly. Looking at it, Robbo, has Tony Adams got a point?
Not really, because no English player, yes, they've done well at club level, but no English player has won anything at international level. So every player going into this tournament at England is in doubt of whether they are good enough to win on the world stage. And if you're talking about English players, we're talking about Belgium as well. They've got three players, Dembele, they've got Alderweireld, Vertonghen, they're Tottenham players. And what's he saying? That you don't pick anybody that's played for a team that haven't won anything? It's a ridiculous comment in my view.
I mean, let's keep in mind as well that we are talking about an England team that won a World Cup in '66, got to a Euro semi-final. Outside of that, not a whole lot to brag about. So regardless of whether you win Premier League titles or not, it somehow failed England in the past. And so to kind of throw this lazily out there that is all down to Spurs players and their mentality, I find disingenuous.
And you've got to remember, this is a man that played for Arsenal all his career and he's an Arsenal man through and through. So I think he's having a little
at the same time, yeah, I accept that. But don't, you know, you've gone on to other things. You've managed clubs. You now ask for an expert's opinion. Don't give an opinion of a punter in the street. Not Tony Adams. Let a punt in the streets.
Those Tottenham players are England's best players. Harry Kane. I'm not sure Dele Alli will start, but, you know, they've got some good players in there. Dyer will certainly be, I think, the holding midfield player. Good players that are going to be the fulcrum of England's play.
But does it not take you up a notch if you have won, for example, the Premier League, that you know exactly what it takes to dig deep and go that extra mile to win a trophy? Can that not come in handy, surely, when it comes to experience?
It can give you that little bit of confidence. Sterling could be more confident maybe than Dele Alli at the moment because he just won the league with the Premier League with Manchester City. So he's on top form. Dele Alli didn't have a great season, but I don't think it comes into that international level. None of these England players, as Shaka has said, have won anything at international level. It's a development squad almost. England don't go to the World Cup thinking they're going to win. They just want to do really well and get to the quarterfinals, and if they're lucky, get to the semi-finals. They're not thinking about winning it.
Gab, what do you make of these comments from Tony Adams?
I don't know. I've had the privilege of meeting him, spending time with him, but you know what? I think he just got this one all wrong. He's feeding into the old Spursy stereotypes. If I were unkind, I'd talk about his winning mentality and all the trophies that delivered for England in the 1990s. You know, as Stuart says, you know, none of these guys have won anything at international level. The England shirt is very heavy. It's heavy for everybody. I think we're just kind of going over old ground and chucking out old cliches here.
We discussed this on yesterday's show, Rob, and I thought it's interesting as someone who's just come from England regarding the pressure that's on these players. Gab's mentioned it there about how heavy the England shirt can be at times, but how there is a feeling that going into this tournament, maybe there isn't that sort of focus and pressure on them. You know, there was talk that maybe even if they don't get out of the group, it's not the end of the world. You know, they won't.
That would be the end of the world. If England didn't get out of the group, you know, that would be a disaster for them. There isn't so much pressure on them because the press aren't saying that England are going to go and win it. They're not saying they're going to get to the semi-finals. And I think what Gareth, I was quite critical of Gareth Southgate a couple of years ago when he first was in charge of the under-21s and he was part of the development setup. I didn't think he was developing the players as he should do. But I think he's done a very good job. He's got his system absolutely right. He's stuck with the system. He hasn't swapped and changed people. Everybody knows what they're trying to do. He hasn't been overcomplicated. And I think he's given the players a platform in which to show their best qualities. And I think England will do quite well. I think they might even win the group, but I don't think they're going to go on beyond the quarterfinals.
Well, how far do you think England are going to do? Well, you can go over to the website, go over to espnfc.com and fill out your match predictor. A lot of fun. Get your mates involved as well. You can set up some groups. See how far you think England will do. Welcome back. There's been a lot of talk, hasn't there, about what the fan experience is going to be like in the World Cup this year. Well, Alison Bender and Mark Ogden will be in Russia throughout the tournament. They landed in Moscow today and gave us their first impressions.
Yes, hello, welcome to Moscow. Here we are right outside Red Square, but it is actually closed at the moment. It's a public holiday tomorrow, and there's a big classical music gala going on there as well. But even though the tournament doesn't kick off until Thursday, the atmosphere is incredible. There's fans already. Haven't seen any England fans yet, but I guess England don't play for a while.
No, I mean, I travelled out today, and it was interesting that my flight was full of Peruvians, Mexicans, Colombians, Uruguayans, not many England fans, but the problem with that is they don't play till Monday, so Volgograd's quite a long way away as well. So, you know, there's a reason why there's not many England fans here. Also the concerns of what happened in Marseille 2 years ago. So,
you were there. I mean, should England fans be worried? Obviously, there were violent clashes between the two sets of fans, the ultras, it probably has to be said. And there's heavy policing here, we can see.
I mean, I was in Marseille, and it was quite a scary exercise, to be honest, to be there. But, you know, I was at the Confederations Cup last year, and the security was intense.
Cue the police sirens, by the way.
Yeah, it was a much more different atmosphere, and I think that the England fans aren't travelling in great numbers. They're at 32,000, which is way down on the number. Australia, the USA have got more fans here.
USA are second to Russia.
88,000 tickets sold to the States. So I think the England fans are genuinely concerned, and I think also there's an element of, you know, fatigue with the football as well. I think they're not that optimistic about the way it's going to go. So with that and the fans, it's a scary concept for England fans.
Okay, and it certainly was an easy journey, wasn't it? Just 3 hours 40 from London Heathrow. So the England fans coming into Moscow should find the trip a lot easier. That's been put out in the press. We will be here every day until the tournament ends on the 15th. So make sure you keep it right with us here at ESPN.
Thank you very much, guys. Of course, not only them in Moscow, but also Gab Marcotti as well. Gab Marcotti, as always, travelling in luxury from the penthouse of his apartment, joining us now, Gab. And is that Red Square behind you, over your right shoulder?
That's right. That's the Kremlin back there. It's maybe a 10-minute walk up there. Over to the right is St. Saviour's. Well, you can't see it, but believe me, it's right there.
You can tell us anything. We believe you, Gab.
Cathedral just over the Volga River. That's right. And Gorky Park. When you're done with this, go rent the movie. It's actually very good. Gorky Park is right there. I could probably... It's basically a long throw-in away from this balcony.
Okay, let's focus on some other news, shall we, Gab? Talking about transfers. We discussed yesterday how Griezmann said that he's going to get everything done before the start of the World Cup. It seems that Alisson seems to be saying the same sort of sentiments regarding his future, of course, being heavily linked to Liverpool.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think there's also contract negotiation going on. From what I've been told, this is unlikely to get done before the World Cup, if at all. There's still a lot of distance, obviously, between these two sides. Obviously, the relationship between the two ownership groups, Roma and Liverpool, very, very close, both Boston-based. But that said, you know, you could argue they already helped them out last year with Mohamed Salah. They don't want to let another world beater get away this soon. And I think from Roma's perspective, it makes sense to see what happens after the World Cup and what kind of tournament Alisson has.
This is it, Shaq, isn't it? Because it's a lot of money. We're in things like $80 million, almost excess of that. Is he worth it?
I think he's worth it to Liverpool, without question. I think if Liverpool are to continue to contend at the higher ends of European football, if they are to threaten the likes of Manchester City and Manchester United, one of the holes that they've got to plug is in between the sticks. Alisson goes a long way to that. You spend 75 million on a centre-back. I still think as a defensive unit, it's incomplete. You need a goalkeeper who can hold up their end as well.
This is the problem, though, isn't it, Robbo? Because you're putting all your eggs pretty much in a goalkeeping basket. Because if you put 80 million there, you haven't got much of a budget left to reinforce that defence or give you some backup front as well.
They were better defensively towards the end of the season. Van Dijk certainly made a difference. I wouldn't say he read the game as well as people would say he did. But Liverpool were better all-round defensively. In midfield, it wasn't just about the back four. It was about how they defended elsewhere on the field. But they still need that goalkeeper. And I don't think it matters how much they spend on the goalkeeper. They need a new goalkeeper because Karius won't come back from that disaster against Real Madrid.
Meanwhile, Gab, we were talking yesterday about the deal between Liverpool and Fekir breaking down. There's speculation now that maybe it could be Shaqiri who will be coming in to reinforce that Liverpool midfield. What do you think?
Well, there's obviously been contact. Shaqiri asked about this the other day on Swiss television. It's kind of funny if you get to see the clip because he just kind of kept giggling and saying, like, I can't talk about it, can't talk about it, don't make me talk about it, can't talk about it, without ever actually denying anything. Now, obviously, you know, Shaqiri, he brings a totally different tool set to the table than Nabil Fekir. But for one thing, he's younger, probably doesn't have the same upside, the same ceiling. What he does have, of course, he's already settled in the Premier League. And if you're looking for an alternative off the bench that can come in and fit into that front three, you know, you've got Lallana coming back, you've got Solanke. We're talking about basically adding depth here rather than grooming a potential long-term starter, which is what Fekir would have brought to the table.
Do you support this move?
Yeah. Coutinho went. They haven't really replaced him with the similar sort of player. That's what Shaqiri can do. He can either do it from a wide area, he can play in behind a main striker.
It's no Coutinho, though.
He's no Coutinho. He's not as good as Coutinho, but he's somebody that can run with the ball. He can certainly get his shots away. He showed with a very poor side with Stoke that he can perform in the Premier League. I think it would be a good sign, but as Gab said there, only as a squad player rather than being a number one in the team.
It's been a while since we've mentioned Arsenal on this show, and just a few weeks ago, Patrick Vieira, of course, was linked heavily to a move to the Gunners. Yet it seems now he's going to Nice. It's been official, hasn't it, Gab? He's moving from NYCFC to Ligue 1. And it's interesting to see how his progression now will go because expectations have changed, certainly at Nice, haven't they? Where they're much higher these days.
They're higher to a point. Obviously, the ownership group is there, but, you know, they're still, I don't think, in a position to necessarily make that big leap up. Obviously, they had that tremendous season a couple years ago. The interesting thing with Vieira is my understanding is, he was certainly led to believe, go to NYCFC, do your thing. Pep's going to come. He's going to sign a 3-year contract. We don't know, you know, he's going to last 3 years, and then he'll be gone, and then your time, you know, will be here at City. Now, obviously, with Pep deciding he's going to stick around longer, I think Vieira felt, all right, I've been here, I've done my time, I need a new experience. Obviously, the City job won't be available. How can I best prepare myself for it? And so he opts to go back to France, back to Nice, and try to bring his football there, and then really face a totally different set of challenges, get a different skill set than what you have in MLS, where obviously there's salary caps and there's rules and there's restrictions. Here, he can perhaps build his team in a slightly more traditional from a European standpoint way.
Be hard pushed to find anyone in MLS who's played with him who has anything but good things to say about Vieira. But it's a big step now, isn't it?
It is, but it's a step that he prepared himself for, not by just what he did with NYCFC, but in time he spent in the off-season. He spoke about spending time with Pep Guardiola, about going and meeting with Sarri at Napoli, stuff like that, to kind of get a better understanding of football at the highest level. Now, if this was a player making that same move, it's a no-brainer. For Patrick Vieira, similarly, as a coach, I think it ticks all the right boxes. It makes a whole lot of sense. If a big European club like a Manchester City comes a-calling after Pep Guardiola decides his time is up, I'm sure that won't be much of a decision for him to make either.
Future Premier League manager?
I think he will be. I've been impressed with some of the things he's done when he was Manchester City's youth coach. I saw the way they played. He's also done very well for New York City FC, up to a certain point. I think he's a good coach before the game. I haven't seen him make the right changes when things are going against him. When they played the Red Bulls of New York City FC, they were 2-3-0 down after 20 minutes, and it was like watching Arsene Wenger's team. The Red Bulls wanted to go and press the ball. New York City wanted to play out from the back, and suddenly they were 3-0 down, and he didn't recognise what was happening.
How did you
change the game?
How did you turn that into a dig at Arsene
You knew
Wenger?
I would get that in at some point.
22 minutes. 22
You
minutes.
knew I'd get it in. So he didn't look as though he could change the game.
Poor Wenger, eh? Didn't deserve to go, did he?
No, not at all.
Right, we asked you, let's end the show with your ultimate 11, Robert. When it comes to the World Cup, the boys have been, of course, doing it throughout the week. Let's take a look at who you've chosen. De Gea in goal, Marcelo, Ramos, Godin, Kimmich, De Bruyne, Kante, Modric, Neymar, Ronaldo, and Messi. There is a problem.
It's a big problem,
With
yes.
your 11, because according to our programme, you couldn't have those three up front because those three are the attacking players. You need a striker. You're going to have to take out one of Neymar, Ronaldo, or Messi.
Well, I think Ronaldo now is a centre-forward, but apparently he's not, according to this.
Allowed.
He's not allowed. So I'm going to take him out the team because I don't think he's anywhere near as effective out on the left wing as Neymar would be. And I'm going to put in Luis Suarez. I think he'll have a good World
We
Cup.
have Suarez.
We'll have Suarez. And he didn't have a good season this year, but I think he might...
He did have a good season. That's a good start.
I think he might come to the fore in this World Cup.
So Shaq had Lewandowski. Why would you have Suarez over?
I've seen Lewandowski play for Poland. He's not been anywhere near as effective as he is for Bayern Munich. Yeah. So there's one reason.
Griezmann?
Griezmann, I wouldn't put him as an out-and-out centre-forward. I think he's somebody that likes to come short rather than running behind. So I wouldn't have him... If you were saying, is there a centre-forward, I wouldn't have him as a centre-forward. Suarez is a centre-forward. The next one would be Cavani. He's a centre-forward as well.
I was going to go Harry Kane.
Harry Kane, yeah, is another centre-forward. But I would go with Suarez as the main...
Should we name every centre-forward?
What we're talking about...
Could you say he's a centre-forward?
Somebody said Griezmann. I wouldn't have him as a centre-forward.
Well, he was in the list as a centre-forward.
Ronaldo should be in the list as a centre-forward. He's a centre-forward these days.
We've talked a lot about Neymar leading up to this World Cup, the favourite to be the player of the tournament. It's interesting, in the past, you haven't been on the Neymar bandwagon.
No.
You kind of define him as a luxury player.
A little bit of a luxury.
Has your mind changed slightly?
A little bit when he plays for Brazil. I think he's been excellent. In the friendlies I've seen him play for Brazil, he's been top quality. He's scored goals. He's run with the ball. He's been a good team player. He's worked harder defensively under the new coach. But he's still, and we were talking about club football, he's still been a problem at PSG to a certain degree.
But there seems to be a different Neymar when he's with club than
Absolutely.
with country.
When he's playing for his country, he looks a better professional. He looks as though he works harder off the ball. He looks as though he wants to get on with everybody. When he's playing for his club, he looks as though he wants to be the number one, and if the ball doesn't get to him, he's frustrated. I don't like his antics with diving and play acting and trying to get players sent off. So, and if I was, and what we were talking about last year, if I was a manager of one of the top sides, a Barcelona, Real Madrid, a PSG, a Manchester United, he wouldn't be the player I would bring in to make my side the great side that they wanted to be, because I wouldn't trust him.
I think you were the only one in the midfield of the boys that had Modric, actually. I think everyone else had Cruz.
Well, we were at the game together, the Champions League final. If there's one player that when people want to press him, that can just wriggle out of situations and change the pace of the game or play around pressure, switch the play, Luka Modric is that player. I think he's a magnificent footballer, and that's why I've got him in that midfield.
It's interesting you got Sergio Ramos there, and as you say, we're at the final together. We didn't quite see exactly what everyone else saw, because obviously you're in the stands. But what do you make of everything that's happened after, with regarding the coverage that Ramos has done?
I don't think Ramos meant to damage Salah. I think he's still an exceptional... He'll have his moments where he can get sent off. We know he can be rash, but I still think he's a top-class defender, and he's proved it time and time again, with Spain, with Real Madrid.
And for a man who loves his defence and loves the organisation, Marcelo at left-back.
He'll go forward because Ramos will sit in behind, as we discussed in the Champions League final.
At length, I seem to remember, Robbo, if memory serves me right from our time in Kiev. Thank you very much, Robbo. Thank you very much to Shaka and, of course, to Gav, to Mark and Alison.